Right, the next is Eastern Vision with Peter Beck and Evan Smith.
Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora.
Nā hawe whānā iwi e tau nei, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. First of all, it's really nice to be in these hallowed precincts again, and I pay my respects to this chamber and to all of you councillors and the work that you do. I'm wearing a dog collar. I don't wear one very much
I'm a bit
these
frightened
days.
by
Yeah,
that,
no,
Peter,
it's
yeah.
just I like to implicate the church in what I'm doing. Tom McBride, he says, because I've only got 2 ties and they're both out of fashion. That's where we are.
Thank goodness it's only the church and not God.
I am also a very proud resident of Richmond, and so I want to endorse a whole lot that's been said before today, all of it, really. Because it largely comes from my end of this, our end of the city, it is indicative, though, however, of a whole lot of other buds that are springing up across the corridor and across the city. So don't just think it's us in Richmond just doing it all here. In a sense, we speak on behalf of many, many more people, as I'm sure you're all aware. It's so good, actually, before I really get into it, to hear the comments that many made, and particularly yours, Your Worship. I really appreciate the comments you'll be making here this morning. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the settlement, and it's good to have Evan as part of this with me because he is part of Eastern Vision, just as I'm part of Avon Otakara Network. It's been 8.5 years since that fateful day on the 22nd of February 2011. As we all know, the impact on virtually every one of us who lived or live here in this city at that time has been traumatic. This is particularly true for those who lived or continue to live in the East. The trauma and frustration has gone on and on over the years as the various government and local agencies have struggled and striven with each other over who makes decisions about what, who tells who what to do around here, who is leading us into our future, let alone, alongside that, the intense angst and conflict over insurance and EQC processes and outcomes. Grassroots folk have striven really hard to make sure that the voice of those whose spirit, whose wairua, is immersed in the land, whose story of family and community life, whose life and energy and possessions are soaked into the land in the East, is heard and helped to shape the future. You may remember that Concern was born out of the need for communities to have a voice in making just decisions. There has been angst and frustration for all of us in this, not least, of course, for you guys, our city councillors and your staff. And there has also been breathtaking and exciting initiatives generated by local communities, social entrepreneurs, grassroots entrepreneurs, those who hold dear the ecological, social and environmental core of these lands and the villages of which they're made. And for all of this, many thanks to all those elected officials, staff of the various agencies, both statutory and voluntary, not-for-profits, who work for the well-being of our city and its future. But I suggest to you that people are tired. The frustration of delay and confused leadership means that many have given up and gone, and we've already heard from some this morning that some are on the edge of that, unless things happen soon. If we continue to delay, more will follow. We're all too aware of the degree of mental health issues that are ongoing for so many people in our area. We are straining for a clear path forward that embraces all of us. The global settlement is a compromise. With hindsight, we can criticise what decisions were made between Crown and City Council and the plethora of agencies that have determined our decision-making processes and outcomes. Yes, it is not ideal, and many would want to delay and relitigate for justifiable reasons. Yes, the timing of it has been regrettable, the time for public consultation and engagement too brief. Should we delay to seek what might be a more equitable and just outcome for our city? I don't think so, actually. With a local election almost upon us and a national election next year, there's no certainty that we'll be able to get what might be a better settlement for a considerable time. And we need to move to action where at present we are stalled. So Eastern Vision would like to commend the team, Brendan and Andrew and others, for negotiating this settlement. In our view, at last it provides a clear pathway forward for the regeneration of Christchurch, and in particular for us, of course, the regeneration of the East. It's not a perfect outcome, but it does provide a good, solid basis to enable locally led regeneration in a timely manner, something which we haven't seen much of in the East of late. We endorse the proposed outcomes with their focus on people, momentum, value and future. We particularly value the focus on people and community. However, while we support outcomes for the people of Christchurch, we remind Council this can only be achieved with and by the people of Christchurch. In your success in resuming local control, do not limit this to the Council. There must be an ongoing devolution and dialogue with the community as those outcomes unfold at each step of the way. That is true local leadership. We also endorse the focus on momentum. This is critical to the regeneration of the river corridor, as pointed out by Evan and the Avon-Otakara Network and others who've spoken this morning. The current stalling of momentum has resulted in the loss of really good opportunities and really good people. We can't afford to let this continue. We strongly endorse the phased approach to increasing community involvement in the governance and decision-making regarding transitional land use in the residential red zones, and key roles for Ngaitahu and Mana Whenua in this. However, this must support and not compromise the corridor regeneration plan, and it must be undertaken with good strategic oversight that provides leadership, drive, coherence and integration, geographically and across sectors, with clearly defined timeframes and funding. And this needs to include the involvement of communities and stakeholders in decisions about what transitional and long-term governance could look like and how land parcels are defined and the order in which they're conveyed. We do endorse the residential red zone agreement to transfer the lands for $1. However, we are concerned about what you've heard also this morning about the demand by the Crown for a 50% cut of any economic return from lease or sale. I don't actually believe the Crown have lost a lot in what's happened, if anything, in what's happened over the last few years. The potential for them to demand such economic, so 50% of the cut of economic return from lease or sale has the potential, as you heard earlier, to undermine local control and to shift the focus of any project onto economic return only, rather than the multiple bottom line benefits that we know about. Like Avon, we understand the need for multiple titles. However, we also strongly urge single public ownership for the river corridor, not only to preserve the integrity of the green spine, but also the integrity of the whole corridor as a multi-purpose river park. We don't believe any of the land should be shaved off for private sale to raise revenue at any point in the future. All land uses can be achieved via leasehold arrangements. We have seen how pressures have been put on, for instance, Hagley Park and other great parks around the world to have parts sold off for purposes which don't meet the integrity of the guiding vision. We note that there's nothing in settlement either to address the costs of any outstanding earthquake legacy issues in the eastern suburbs, for instance, New Brighton Business District, Linwood Village, South New Brighton and South Shore, and outstanding infrastructure repairs such as the Pages Road Bridge and Swans Road Bridge. We trust that Council will take all these into account into prioritising funding in annual and long-term planning processes in the future. However, despite these concerns and limitations, in all of this, we think that this is a settlement we need to support, deserves your approval, so that we can get on with the job of regenerating the East with the communities of the East as soon as possible. And I've hardly left you any time to make any comment. Thank you, Your Worship.
Kia ora. Well, you're the first one that I've been able to ask this question to, but you were a councillor when the cost-sharing agreement was confirmed.
Indeed.
In a non-public setting with no input from
Correct.
the public at all.
Correct.
This is not a submission process. this is simply the deputations that
Indeed.
are allowed at a public meeting, and you know the process. And we've actually provided for the deputations to happen a couple of days before the meeting itself, so that we've got time to reflect on what people have to say. And so what I'm hearing from you is a very strong message of, you know, could it have been better? Yes. Do we need to get on with it? Yes. Should we delay it? No.
That's exactly where I sit on this. And I'm really delighted that you're having the meeting on Thursday in public.
Yes.
It's really important.
Yeah.
that we're
Live
hearing
stream for those that can't make it.
that. Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Look, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
presentation. Much appreciated.